Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the plenary for the last time. You can.
Yes. Okay, so just like, hello. I just want to say that someone left a phone in the upper bathroom. So if someone is looking for a phone, it's at the counter here. And if you could tell others, okay? It's over there.
In the reception.
Yeah, it's at our front desk.
Exactly, it's a front desk.
Someone, because I didn't know if to leave it.
Yeah,
or not,
lovely.
so.
Well done. Thank you. How are you feeling? Great. Tired. Some others? Good. Yes, I have a big voice. Otherwise, I wouldn't mean impatient. What other feelings? Hungry. Oh my God. You didn't go to Lebanese. I think there was quite a long queue for Lebanese, but it was a good food. It worked out. It was good food. Exactly. Good. So we have the last part of the Congress before the amazing party. And the idea of this is to get a little bit you to talk about the things that, well, you have, or some of you have suggested. So the topics I have picked for the next activity are what you have been writing on the whiteboard and on the flip charts. How many of you know what I mean when I say learning cafe? Or world cafe? Yeah. So there are, yes, and there are different kind of approaches to them. So that's why I was thinking that maybe best to describe a little bit how it works today. So first, I don't think this will take more than 5 minutes, more or less. And then there, on the back of the reception, around the tables, there are 8 different places with each one their own question. Or mostly, actually, they are not questions. There may be a claim or a worry or a comment. And it's very open. So you go wherever you want to go. You stay there as long as you want to stay. You can stay with one topic the whole time. If you feel that this is important, you want to have a real impact there, you want to involve with discussion with that topic. If you want to peek into another group, you just go and peek into another group. No problem. So if this almost always happens that one of the topics is very popular, other do have very few people, it doesn't matter. If few people are interested in that topic, go ahead. But we can also close one question and make 2 groups over bigger groups, etc. So it's very flexible in that sense. If you want to be rebellion, you didn't have time to think your interest or question, you can form your own group. Okay? But please stay in some topic that you can share with us here. Because in the end, the idea is that these discussion groups are something that kind of, if not summarize, at least they bring some topics and themes that have been important for you during this Congress. The way it is done, the contents we have had, or the contents we haven't had, which has been missing. So the idea is that when you come here, each group is presented in some ways. So we get kind of glimpse of all the discussion before the formal closing, so to say. There's a flip chart that is called flip chart. It sounds so strange. But anyways, I think flip chart, 8 flip charts all have the team, but they have also a person, our lovely Congress assistants, who are there ready to write the comments and themes on the paper. So the ones who come later can a little bit look there. Okay, these kind of themes have discussed already. And then they can read the results here or present the results there, but any one of you can take over. And then just please, if you feel that this is my topic, or if you just feel that we're poor student, like present before the 80 people is not the easiest task always to do, I can do it for her. Or I want to give an opportunity to her to do so. I mean, anyways, you can also offer to take the lead of the group. That's what I'm saying, actually. Is there something else I should do? Yes, that's the next one before we go. But of the methodology, you kind of, have you questions about it? No. Good. I'm going around all the time, so anyone who looks lost, I go and talk to. Anyway, so there are the topics. Number 1, learning as an organization out of challenging situations. I have put it number 1, and when we come back, we will start number 8 and then come number 1. So that is kind of an overarching theme as well, because this is an organization that is interested in not only training and teaching, but also, and primarily, I would hope, of learning. And that's what is also kind of responsibility of the organization or us as members of the organization to do. Second, the art of intervening. And with that, I mean that there have been, during the Congress, situations that people have commented, I would have liked to say that. But there has been kind of a difficulty. Okay, how should I actually take that as a participant or maybe a person who felt that this didn't go well in my part? How can I say about that without, in a ways that is constructive and it kind of teaches every one of us something? So that is second one. And then third one, when harm is done, what do we do? How do we respond in individual level and as an organization? And more specifically, in the context of this theatre congress here in Lille. And the fourth one is connected also with those two earlier ones, how to, this is my interpretation, may not be how to make this congress a safer space, who isn't here, and how our models and theories affect. And fifth, how to build inclusive theatre, younger, more diverse, and more representative theatre, who isn't here, again, how our models and theories affect. 6, the influence and politics on intercultural cooperation. 7 is a claim calling USA as America is imperialistic. And 8, language is power. So you can sit with these claims for a while, and when you feel you are ready to go and choose one of them to start with, go ahead. You can also, yes, take a picture of them if you want to remind yourself the themes. Do you feel ready? Good, thank you. Thank you for that question. At 5 sharp, we start here. So we will end before that, at latest 5 to 5. I will remind. So I will go to say, and now you have 4 minutes. So we have 40 minutes to discuss. So there is time to go and really have a real discussion, not just something, so to say. Okay, let's see how this works. Enjoy the, sorry, there are some questions. Can you ask? So all the flip charts are on the back of the reception desk. And they are in different, there are those tables you can sit in the sofas, tables there can sit in high, and there's one also in the back, that is good, in the back on the lazy boys. So, I don't know, do you hear them lazy boys or just in Finland? Anyways, do you know what I mean? Good. Thank you. I was so happy to see very engaged discussions around the topics. And as I know, mostly one or sometimes two topics gets aside. So we are not going to handle that question because there was really not a discussion, only it started when we started to came back. So I think that it would not be fair to have the number. Could we, Steve, still have the titles here? Steve, could we have the titles on the board? Thank you. So let's start with number 8, which was the language one. And as I said, it will be 4 minutes maximum for each one. Who is bringing the language one? That's you, exactly.
All right. So for our discussion, we had language is power, or la langue c'est le pouvoir. So we started off very general, talking about power behind labels and being labeled. Thank you. And similarly, lack of language leading to disempowerment or unempowerment. We then talked about native speakerism. And we talked about it in the context of slowing down the dialogue when giving it to non-native speakers, and using English as a power tool. Since we're at a multicultural conference, we brought it towards that. So we talked about how CIATAR Europe could have benefited from multilingualism in the conference or in sessions. We talked about how it's important to be mindful and moderate through silence while translating for people during these sessions. We brought up the idea of intercomprehension, which is allowing multiple languages in discussions, and how that could be an interesting means of implementing multilingualism. We talked about how we could incorporate tools of translation to be more inclusive and accessible. We brought up the example of using sign language. And similarly, since we're at a multicultural conference, keeping in mind that we are also multilingual, we talked about how we believe it was in 1995, there was a conference where they allowed interpreters being able to have that accessible to people with different native languages. And then we had an example of another language being written on the board for us, which tied in as a great example of how we could offer more diverse sessions in languages, because language isn't just orally, it's written as well. And so being able to offer either subtitling or interpreters would be a great means of implementing multilingualism in conferences. We also talked about being conscious, having conscious moderation of discussions to permit more inclusivity. And I believe that was the main idea that we talked about today.
That was a rich discussion, one can see. As I said, one topic, that number 7, there wasn't a group discussion about that, so we skipped that. So next one is the influence of politics on intercultural cooperation. Who is the one? There you go. Okay. You are the flip chart, but it just doesn't have the, yeah.
I hold it.
Thank you very much. Okay. So the influence of politics on intercultural cooperation and vice versa. We had a complex group, and then we had some agreement, but also lots of disagreeing opinions. So I'm trying to represent everything that was said. They influence each other. We also said towards the end that politics are coming out of different countries, different regions, different cities, different legislations. They become laws. And those laws may dictate, for example, what is legally defined as hate speech. And those laws therefore influence whether or not groups can be legitimately intercultural or whether there's a tendency towards separation, what is considered illegal and unacceptable. Some people said that the Setar values could be the guiding light. Who can we let into Setar? Vincent, who's here somewhere, was in our group, shared with us an example of a Congress in Trieste when the war was going on, Serbia, Kosovo, Bosnia, etc. And there was a lot of discussion who should be allowed to participate, who should not participate. I didn't think there seemed to be a clear conclusion, but we might have similar situations happening today. Who should or should not participate in the Olympics? Should everybody be allowed to participate? Should it be inclusive? Should there be a legitimate reason to exclude some people? And as interculturalists, what should be our role? There was disagreement here, but I think to give credit to all of the opinions stated, some people said that the environment should allow diversity, but if some did not respect diversity, for example, in a championship European football game, soccer game, people were shouting racist slogans from the stands, and that's illegal in country X, then maybe those people should be excluded from the next football games. And others of us said that if there are people, we use the example of racism to avoid more controversial topics, that it would be, some of us felt it would be useful to have people who were adamantly racist together with people who were anti-racist and have a calm discussion without violence, without yelling, just understand the other person's viewpoint. I always believe that you can learn from somebody who has a very different viewpoint than you. Many years ago in Washington, D.C., I used to ride the subway and enjoy talking to Republicans sitting next to me because I learned something new and I had a different viewpoint, but we had a respect and peace. It's a little bit more difficult these days, if you know what I mean. But I do really believe you can learn from somebody and they might learn something from you. Some other people in the group were along my line. We need to appreciate other people's differences and allow them in. We need to create a safe place where everybody has a voice, a protective place, a sacred place. So even if my country, and I among my 4 passports, I have a U.S. American passport, mea culpa, sorry about that. And I really believe my country has wreaked enormous harm among many people inside and outside the country. But I think that if we can talk about that and include people and admit that, and we be together in the same room, we might be able to solve more than we just all go to our own separate corner and stay separate. We are interculturalists. So we should be the ones perhaps bridging, helping people to bridge, creating face-to-face contact where possible, and create this safe place. It does have its limits. I know there are some places where people say, okay, it's illegal, or some people are going to have to start shooting, and that's illegal in most countries. Okay, thank you very much. Got to my list. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
And one can imagine that politics brings controversial topics or opinions. Now we actually continue from this. You said about safer or safe spaces. That comes next one after this one. But first, number 5, how to build inclusive theater.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. One of the things we talked about was connecting with other Sitars, especially young Sitar. That was something that we noticed has quite a big gap. We also had a fair bit of discussion aimed at attracting researchers and educators. We've started with that a little bit. There was a great panel discussion on intercultural nuances of the staff at London's King's College. Expanding on things like this is a good way to bring academics and professionals together. We also talked about local support, which could be couch surfing or, dare I say it, if you're driving, bringing somebody else with you, and intersectionality, especially from a non-Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic perspective. We discussed outreach, meaning that maybe there's some people who can take some responsibility to target specific audiences and bring them here. Furthermore, we discussed partnering with the universities in host cities, especially if we know a year or two ahead of time. Maybe they have some students or some educators who are interested in being involved in different ways. They could work on a project together to present, for example. Furthermore, in the host city, maybe we can identify some local organizations that are working on relevant issues and bring them in as well, share their experiences, work together to solve something where we are, create more of a local impact where we travel. Additionally, travel grants. I think that was the last of it. Sorry, a bit of an abrupt ending.
Thank you very much. It's very important part of that one. Just before the next group, I just say I'm gonna to take picture of all of these and posting them in the app, and they are gonna to go to theaters to work further on. Okay.
Thank you. I'm representing group number 4, and we had the questions how to make this Congress safer space, who is not here, how our terrorism method impact. And I'm trying hard not to present alone or to ask, to invite somebody else to present, because as a theater dinosaur, I think could make space for others, but okay. So we had 1, 2, 3 questions. Number 1, and I think the first thing was to listen. And people had the opportunity to share that, hey, great, thank you. You want to take that one? No? Okay. To share that and how, what happens that make them not feel safe. And also how we felt to not feeling safe or to experience the situation where others did not feel safe. So that's something we shared, and I think this space, thank you, note were important in our group. And so that was number 1. Do you want to take some of the solution we had for them, Charlotte?
We were only women.
Yes.
In that workshop. This is something interesting to address. And we said that there was a lot of mansplaining during the workshop. A lot.
Congress.
And during the Congress, and the introducing event was really problematic. So there is a need for theater to address gender issue, LGBTQIA+ issue, and really to address them like something importantly, and also racial issue, because there were a lot, we shared our experience and we observed live a lot of microaggressions since Tuesday, and this is not acceptable. So there must be a lot of change for the Congress in 2026. And it could be to have a safety team. It's already something that it's really common in a lot of events and organizations, and we are quite surprised it's not happening in theater, that some people are actually trained about gender, racial, sexism, how to address if you are a victim of sexist violence or racial violence. And you know these people are trained, and you feel uncomfortable or you are witness a situation, a problematic situation, you know that you can go to these people and you can address the situation and you don't keep the emotion. Because we also felt that the space we had now, it was needed maybe to have it like every day. So also to have a space at the end of every day to address critical incidents or just how you feel.
And that would basically also be a possibility for all of us to learn, right? So like right now, again, we're at a transition phase at theater, and we felt a lot of tension that like on one hand, we're bringing in new topics. We were talking about decolonization. We were talking about power. We were talking about adjusting our language, our concepts. And in the same time, in a lot of the sessions that was not lived or felt, So we all need to sort of learn as a collective. And another thing that we discussed was many people did not feel very included, especially people that were here for the first time or here alone. So it would be nice to have some structural changes. For example, this first timer meeting, I wasn't there, but I was told it was more about the history of theater and not about connecting. There's no sort of buddy program. There's no possibility to join groups of colleagues that have known each other for a long time. So it might be nice to have the chance to sort of get into there, or have chance for dinners that are, or lunch breaks that are sort of outside of your normal groups. Am I forgetting anything? Yeah, and in the panel, so basically the keynote speakers, most of them, all of them were male, except of the last panel that was a mixed group. Yeah, we already know there was a woman that got sick.
Two women.
Yeah, okay,
Two women.
So there was the effort. But again, right, the opening speech and so on, to have like 5 white male on stage did not feel okay. And yeah, generally sort of in the panels to just make a bigger effort to make them more diverse and more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There comes a lot of things, food for thought, how we do these events next time. For all to learn, we are going there, number 1. And now the 4, how to make this Congress 3. No. Yes, 3, sorry. Thank you. I have to.
Hello. We do it together a little bit. Yeah, I think maybe building up on what the group before us said, we're here together with a super diverse group of people, and things I think have happened at this conference during those days. And I think we came to kind of the most important thing. If something happens and you are the one who caused another person to be triggered or be harmed, reflect on what happened and why that happened. So reflect on your behavior and impact on others. And I think that puts more responsibility also on people who belong to the majority groups, who belong to the norm, etc. Yeah, I think that's really rule number 1, to reflect on yourself and what can we do to prevent it? How can we learn from it? Yeah, would you like to continue?
So these are our 3 summary points. The second one was the role of the moderator in the group is really important. And what we found is that in some of the groups, when things happened or someone really wanted to talk about something, it railroaded a discussion. And there's people who've put a huge amount of effort into their presentations. And it's also just, how do we hold the space for the purpose of the session as well? So it's that balance. So the role of the moderator, rather than just assuming that people will just come and talk, but making sure that there are guidelines for moderators, and for all of us, that day 1, there's something, and it's not strictly rules necessarily, but principles and protocols and practice for dealing with what comes up. Because as interculturalists, this is what we do. This is our life. If we can't manage inclusive processes and disagreement, how do we do our work? So this is a practice experience, and regular reminders and reinforcement around those principles and protocols, looking out for one. And then this third one is looking out for one another. So again, it comes back to this reflecting on your behaviour, and that this is the practice of interculturalism, is how do we support one another in this process. And it's that self and situational awareness of what's going on around us. We did also talk about self-regulation, that sometimes we don't know what's going to trigger other people, and it's not necessarily possible to always stop that happening because everyone has diverse lived experience and we don't know what the layers are until something comes up, and we might not know what's going to trigger us until we're in a situation. So to actually, as much as possible, and recognizing sometimes it's not possible, but to step out, to reach out to somebody, to get some support, step back. And this, it's interesting, this builds on the previous as well, around a space to share, dialogue, debrief, engage if things do come up. So if they come up, it's not a gossip over coffee or a reach out to a friend or a try to make yourself feel better somehow, which doesn't always work. So should we just go through a couple of the...
We had a lot. I don't remember everything. And maybe, well, one of the things I do remember, it would have been nice maybe if it had been mentioned at the beginning of the conference, like, okay, we're here together with this group of people. How are we going to interact respectfully? And things will happen. So if things do happen, what do we do? And, you know, then these are a few things that are super important that I think, you know, might help in this learning process. Yeah.
And this is the thing, is we thought this is a learning process and it's an incredible opportunity. And this is where we learn the most, is when we get uncomfortable sometimes. So our work is about dialogue. So we need to share and listen to diverse perspectives. Yeah, some language around boundaries and psychological safety, moderation skills. So that is a skill. Oh, yeah. So where do we take topics offline? Because if things come up in the session, we can't let it all just happen live in the room, but we shouldn't necessarily totally shut it down. So is there a place? We flag things to be discussed somewhere else, and where is that somewhere else? But there needs to be a space for that somewhere else. And we need to expect this. If we're doing our work, people will be sometimes triggered. So anyway, that was it. Day one, it's normalised this, and our values may be challenged, but there are CETA values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, if not everything here was not mentioned, you will have it in the pictures. Group number 2 actually continues with the same issue of the art of intervening. When we see that something happens, or I don't know how you actually interpreted that. Let's see.
Thank you so much. Right, so I think this builds on several of the points that have been made so far, but we concentrated on the sessions themselves, and let's start with number 5, be more inclusive. It's a fairly obvious point, but how? So, like the previous conversation point, yeah, you know, should there be more well-established ground rules about what happens, especially in terms of the kind of code of conduct for interactions within the sessions? It might be good to clarify that, and I think that, yes, of course. Sorry. Yeah, very similar to the previous group. Maybe we can clarify that a bit and get the presenters to make sure that they are including everyone's voice. I think there were 2 very strong ideas that came out in our discussion. One was about allowing enough time for people to express ideas. So we talked about sorry, it's here, gaps and space, and maybe we found a lot of the sessions were rushed. And the reason was because people obviously had questions to ask, but there was maybe not enough time built into the lesson plan or the session plan to allow discussion questions at the end. So maybe we should say, if it's 90 minutes, plan for 60 minutes, then you have a buffer for question and answer. And then if you finish a bit early, then that's fine. But otherwise, it gets very rushed. And a lot of the sessions didn't actually or left a lot of stuff until the last 5 minutes that we would have liked to have got to earlier. So there was a bit about that. And if we allow a bit more gaps and space during the sessions as well, for those who are maybe a bit more implicit, a bit more passive in their communication style, and make sure that the presenters themselves are looking for opportunities to invite everyone, not just the loudmouths, not just the native speaker loudmouths to, in effect, dominate the session, which we know can happen. Because it's easier for us native speakers to express our ideas, isn't it? And then another idea we had, which was just a practical one, about allowing more anonymous questions. So in order to open up the discussion. But I think several of the sessions I went to tried to do that, which is great. But, you know, it's a space we can refer back to. It could be a Padlet, it could be a Mentimeter, or whatever you want to use. But the use of technology to encourage full participation, offline, asynchronous, maybe, that you come back to later. So that was an idea. And then the other interesting discussion we had, which we tried to sum up, was the kind of discourse, in some ways, of giving feedback and of criticism. One of the members of our group felt that there were cultural differences in the openness to feedback. Basically, it was, if you're in a French environment, then there's a higher expectation of more direct, critical feedback and no softener or sweetener. But that is part of the discourse, and that should be understood. Whereas in other environments, it felt like that would be seen as a bit problematic or confrontational. So it was to try to move away from the linguistic cultures, basically of English, as the person put it, of not being open to a more critical feedback coming in the session. So that was interesting. And I thought another thing we didn't put down was to establish the openness for feedback during the session for each type of presentation, so that you had some deep dive session, which is maybe more theoretical. And in that sense, maybe you wouldn't challenge so much. But then in another session, it might be more open because it's a workshop. And that was it. We talked about a lot of stuff and tried to make it as practical as possible. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, so we think, Kirsten, that you are now summing up everything nicely and packaging. No, that's not true. But you can see that this builds up and challenges us to both look at us and the organization. Learning as an organization of challenging situations.
Right.
What would it be?
I didn't plan to do this. I didn't plan to be the last highlight of the conference, but here I am. Can anybody understand me okay? Yo, good. Okay, so we discussed learning as an organization from or out of challenging situations, and I think it sort of really relates to what was said before. And we didn't just look at theater, we've discussed it in general, but I would like to bring it back into the theater context. So the first thing we discussed was actually how to reach organizational learning, not only the individual. We can all go home with these criticisms and feedback and say, yeah, I need to do that more, maybe I should do that more. And then, of course, by the next conference, we have conveniently forgotten what we promised ourselves. But how do we do this at an organizational level? Because our experience is in organizations like theater and companies and so on, that we do best practice sessions like this one. And do we actually follow up on this on an organization? Learning management is something every organization says we'll do it, but the implementation, the sustainability and everything is not always reached. So it needs to be done across departmental level. It needs to be done, and this is like with a chief learning manager, not somebody in HR who's totally ignored by management, sales, and research and development, but really a chief organizational manager in the C-suite. So maybe we can have that as a new post in the theater organization too, I'm not sure. Intergenerational training, management, and learning, as also really trying to take down the silos. Yeah, and you have to live and lead by example, because if the C-suite doesn't really follow up on the total learning approach and implementing learning, you cannot expect the members of the organization to do that either. We also think that, like, I think theater has a good limit on its number of values, but we often see that organizations try to reach too much in very short time, so fewer values are actually easier to follow up on. And what we think is, and I really, really hope, this was not agreed in the group, but I just say that, I really hope that this is happening, that we really learn from faults and failures and allow to do that. And in an institution like theater, in an intercultural organization, I do not want to be stereotyped, I do not want to have microaggressions, and I would really like to bring back a buddy and mentor system for the first-timers. I apologize to every first-time I didn't have a chance to talk to. Thank you.
Let's have huge applause to all of you. Really lovely conversations, I can see. That was really the last ones, not exactly because I will give a mic for you. I think we are talking about the party, are we? Yeah? Logistics. Okay. No parties.
Yeah, I've been told people enjoy how I talk about boring logistical stuff, so I'll just keep on doing that. So tonight is a party. The party will include food. So if you had planned on eating before, don't, because there's free food here. It's not free, you already paid for it, so don't pay double for the food. But there's also drinks. Lots of drinks, non-alcoholic, alcoholic, all kinds of whatever floats your boat. There will be music, we can dance, and Grant asked me to get everyone out of the building by 6:15 so that everyone can just set up here nicely, and then at 8 o'clock we can start. Over there will be like food and so on. Over there we can drink and dance and be merry and happy. And with that, the last word of this Congress to the chairperson of the steering committee that shipped us through this storm of making this thing happen.
You're a hard act to follow, Bastian. You're just fantastic. Thank you for everything you've done. The program's been fantastic, right, guys? I mean, we've had everything from how to design a workshop with neurodiversity in mind to learning from Indigenous cultures in terms of healing and migration issues and identity. So it's been brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bastian. And to all the speakers and everyone who helped. And talking of people who helped, I have to thank Charlene and all her amazing volunteers. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I mean, setting up the Zoom link, setting up the rooms, you've been amazing. Please, go on. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Steve, sorry, but again, thank you. I'm going to have to thank you. Amazing. The app, hasn't the app been brilliant? You know, there's the little QR Zoom, the QR codes, connecting with everyone. It's so exciting. I love tech, things like that. So thank you, Steve, for everything. We couldn't have done it without you. Grant, where's Grant? Has he gone already? Oh, well. I wanted to thank him again because he's on site here and I think he's been living in a sleeping bag under his desk for the past 2 months, you know, making sure that everything's in place. He's been brilliant. And, well, Nadia, obviously, the communications, you've been great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. And Adrian and Christine aren't here either. I was going to thank them. And also there was talk of inclusion and scholarships. And I'd like to say, you know, our mentor's been amazing at getting money from sponsors, and we have got a bit of money left for a scholarship for the next Congress. So that's something that we want to bring ahead and build on and really make it inclusive for everyone and help, because we know money is an issue. So is Grant there? There he is. There he is. So thank you, Grant. Thank you. Thank you for everything, Grant. You're amazing. And well, we will also just send out a feedback form on Noonify. So if you could just give us 5 stars, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks. And I'm not going to hold you much longer because I know Bastian needs to get to hair and makeup for the party. So on that note, thank you all of you, because, you know, we've been working on this for a good 18 months or so, and we would have had fun on our own, the 10 of us, but, you know, it's been more fun with you guys here. You've been brilliant. It's been wonderful to see you all, and thank you for making it so special. Okay, thank you.
Please remember, bring your own belongings. Don't forget your belongings. Sorry. All of those, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. But this from B to C. Yeah, that without was suddenly I didn't remember. I can say that without. That's fine. I should have said that. I look for what I can't even ask.